Welcome back to another edition of the Friday Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Johnson. Today, I have a really fun interview. I talked with Mike Koprowski. Most of you probably are not going to know the name Mike Koprowski. He is a up-and-coming golf architect. He got into the industry late in life, a unique road to his life as a golf architect. He's been working with Kyle Franz. He mostly worked for Kyle Franz until this project called Broomsedge, a new golf course that's near Columbia, South Carolina, where he had the unique situation of being an owner as well as a golf course architect on it. So it is a co-design between him and Kyle Franz. I would say, in terms of co-design, probably more of a Mike Koprowski design than a Kyle Franz design. All these projects have a little bit different share of designers. That's my personal opinion. It's subjective who could be the designer or co-designer. But this was a really, really fun conversation with Mike about Broomsedge, his life, which is very unique. Not a lot of golf architects with his background, his road to being a golf architect. I think it's super relatable for people that have worked a myriad of jobs in their lives and at some point thought about being a golf course architect. So this was super fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. Before we get to Mike, let's talk about our partner, Club Champion. Club Champion's been our partner for a while, and why they are a partner of ours is that I really believe in their product. It's the best way to have partnerships. I have been going to Club Champion basically my entire life. They started in Chicago. I was a customer very, very early on. They were very early in the fitting of golf clubs. This was when I was in kind of high school and college and playing competitive golf. They have remained on the cutting edge of golf fittings, golf club fittings. They have 120 plus studios now nationwide. It's a really cool story of going from one studio to 120 plus nationwide. There you can try basically every single type of head and shaft that you're looking for. There's 65,000 potential combinations. They have all of the new clubs. Something that I think is unique is I got a set of irons that I couldn't get from the manufacturer through Club Champion. Their master fitters are extraordinarily trained, extraordinarily great at what they do. And if you go to clubchampion.com and book a fitting, they have a great offer for you. You can get a $100 full bag fitting or $50 off of any other fitting type, or it's a $100 full bag fitting or $50 for any other fitting type with a club purchase. This is a great holiday gift for a loved one that is into golf. It is go to clubchampion.com, use the promo code FRIEDEGG, and you'll get a $100 full bag fitting or $50 for any other fitting type with a club purchase. Thanks to Club Champion. All right, SEC fans always refer to Columbia, South Carolina as the hottest place on earth. Is that true?
Pretty toasty. Yeah, it's pretty toasty in the summer. It's because there's no wind. It just sits in a bowl. So, but winter, spring, and fall are pretty darn nice.
It is. When I was there, it was really delightful. It was. Yes. It was quite nice. How did you go about finding the site to build this golf course? You're out looking for land. You decide you want to build a golf course. What was your process for determining where you wanted to build a golf course?
Yeah, well, I always felt like there was this missing link between Pinehurst and Aiken. You got the Carolina Sandhills that stretch from North Carolina through South Carolina down into Georgia. We all know about the great golf that's in Pinehurst. We all know about the great golf that's in Aiken. But like east of Columbia area, same soils that Pinehurst is sitting on, but kind of a dearth of great golf. And so that had always been kind of in the back of my mind. So I had first honed in on that area. I mean, I knew I wanted, Sandhills, Topography, where we really weren't going to have to move much earth, just kind of, lay of the land type design. You're always looking for ease of access. So this particular piece of land that I found was 4 minutes off of I-20. You're looking for access to 3-phase power somewhere nearby. So when you start to kind of, winnow down your checklist, there's only a few, there's only a few parcels that really kind of stand out to you. And so I kind of had a geography set from Columbia, to kind of like the North Carolina, South Carolina state line. That stretch of sandhills right there, kind of ends in kind of Chesterfield County-ish. And so I'd honed in on that, contacted a land broker, looked at stuff that was on market. Also, had the land broker put out feels to things that were off market, and probably looked at, 30 different parcels. At that point, once you kind of hit all the checklist pieces, at that point, it's just kind of a gut type feel. When you walk the land, and it's got to do something to you, emotionally. You got to just feel it. And it was often challenging because a lot of the parcels that I looked at they were timber. You couldn't see 5 feet in front of your face. It was just stacked with trees and jungle. And so, thank goodness for modern, topographic maps, because that really helped kind of, help me understand what the lay of the land was, even though I couldn't, quite see it with my eyes. I could feel it with my feet, but I couldn't see it with my eyes. And that was, so ultimately the piece of land that I settled on for Broomsedge was sort of heads and tails above, the other parcels. And I think that was a key thing that I did right. Plenty of shit I did wrong, but one of the key things I did right was patience. That, you're eager to get this going. And, that first parcel that you look at where it checks all the boxes, you just kind of want to jump because you could see good holes everywhere. But I really want to make sure that it felt like a 10 out of 10, and that there was just, something emotional happened when I got on the land. And this one blew it out of the water. And I'm glad I waited, I think it was 8 or 9 months into the process until I really found something that I knew without a doubt could be a great golf course.
The patience aspect of it, if you could, the first piece of land that you saw that you felt like was really a good fit, you have access to a road, access to water, power, you check, like, these are things that like a lot of people don't think about, right? So that checks the box. You see golf holes. What's the difference between what the site you chose where Broomsedge is now to that? Like, what's the intangibles that the site that you chose over that had? And when you think back to if you had built on that site, like how do you think they would be different? This land moved in different ways. It moved in weirder ways, in sort of non-predictable ways. The sandhills are known for sort of their rolling topography, but oftentimes you can get kind of the similar roll over and over again. And you can have, a diverse routing that moves in different directions, but you're still navigating relatively similar terrain. And so, I was really looking for something that just felt like it was randomly converging in weird ways. And this had it, in spades. There were spines, there were valleys, there were ridge lines. There was a weird, like, half pipe chasm that we ended up routing the 8th hole through. There were some parts of it that were relatively tame and gentle, like the 17th hole, that kind of remind you of number 2, where you can just have, vast exposed sand, and it's not going to wash, and it's nice and flat. But then there were other parts that were like, Shore Acres type stuff, where you were going way down in a valley. And there were all these like different micro environments to the site as well. So it just felt like, I think if we were going to pursue this project, it needed to feel different than a lot of the other things that have been built in the sandhills. And I think it was really down to the uniqueness of the land movement. I feel like a word you could use to describe a lot of it is like rambunctious.
Yeah.
You know, and I think like a lot of people would think like, okay, like this is, look at this like consistent roll, but then you get a lot of holes that feel similar. But if the land is, you could describe it as rambunctious, it it creates so much differentiation from hole to hole, and you don't like. I think like land people. I don't think that's necessarily something people think of when it's like, God, all the holes felt the same. And it's like, well, maybe you're just playing ridge to ridge holes all day.
Totally.
You know,
yep.
You have to have that differentiation in topographical interests to have like a very compelling site. I think one. Oh, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think another way to maybe put that is you don't know what the hell's coming next. Think of like our seventh hole to our eighth hole. Like 7 is a pretty gentle, uphill par 4 across pretty gentle terrain with kind of a push up number 2E type green with fall away edges. And you stand on that green. And it just has a certain feel to it. You don't really know what's coming next. You can't even see the eighth hole because it's through that deep chasm in the land. And then you walk over to 8 and it's like, where did this come from? How did this naturally occur? Like, I don't understand how we just went from that to that in the course of one hole. There's not a steady progression of change in the land. You don't see it coming. It just like smacks you. And I think it keeps things interesting and fresh. And the way that the routing goes is that it kind of goes back and forth with that rhythm, as you'll get some sequence of tame and then you'll say, where in the world did this come from?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like it's and it just, the way it moves through, like there are like breaks, and one of the things that stood out to me about this site and this course versus a lot of other golf courses that have been built in the same time period, it felt like a little bit more intimate. It feels, I'm not sure the exact acreage on it, but it feels way small, like a way smaller site than most modern golf courses go for. And I think like one thing I had a question about was, what with smaller acreage, I don't think you had 400 acres, right? What is it?
No,
it's like what, 250-ish?
Well, we expanded to 250, but at the original, when I originally purchased it, it was only 197. Some of that was wetlands areas that we weren't even going to mess with. So the actual area that we had to work with was pretty small. And I think the golf course routing right now sits on like 160.
So I think like in terms of like a lot of modern new developments, they're looking for 350, 400 acres. And, that's great. Having space is amazing.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is the golf always feels kind of expansive.
Yeah.
There's like, you traverse a lot of land. One of the things I loved about your site was it was so small that it felt very old school in the sense of it was like the sequencing of the holes, just like you just kind of fly through the routing. What challenges did that present being such a small golfable site?
Yeah, it was, I had a routing before I even put in a purchase or before I even put in an offer on it, because I was concerned about that very thing, that when you have such a small site, the routing kind of needs to work perfectly. If you run in any spots where you get stuck, there's not a lot of area to play with. There's no room for sprawl. You can't just go out in a different direction, and find better land. So it really needed to work. And that was one of the primary concerns when I looked at this site was, not a lot of room to work with here. And so routed, did a routing. I didn't know if it would be the routing, but did a routing, felt like it would be really, really, really good. And at least I had some confidence there that, okay, I feel like this is a really good golf course right here. I don't know if it'll be the routing, but I'm confident that we can do something great on this site because the land just moves in a certain way to where it all kind of works. And then, Kyle and I spent, 6 months doing different routings. We probably ended up with like 22 different routing scenarios. And then ultimately the one that we landed on was pretty close to the original one that I did, just on the back of a napkin. We changed a few things. We changed like the 5th hole, and the 11th hole we just changed in the field. So the 11th hole isn't even the same as what's on our master plan. So I think that was a key thing. I was not convinced that this would be a great site until we could do the routing. It just needed to fall into place. And that meant no sort of unworkable topography. And I think that having that constraint really led to a lot of kind of innovation, and I think led to better holes. And I think that that's the counterintuitive part of this, is that sometimes you actually can build a better golf course on 200 acres than you can on 400. Size is not an unequivocal good. That sometimes when you have the space, you can sort of go out in search of, a certain landform, but really there's a trade-off there, and that you're sprawling in kind of a direction that kind of disassociates that hole from all the others. We had a lot of constraints on this. And so, we have 2 boundary line holes, which I think are 2 of the best holes on the property. Just an old classic link style, boundary hole on 4 and drivable par 4 on 15, where it's just a simple strategy. It's a linear boundary line. And, the line of charm is, the closer you get to the boundary line, the better your angle is into the green. And those are like great holes, 2 of my favorites on property. I don't know if we do that if we're on 100, if we're on 500 acres. I don't know that we do that. So the constraints, I think, actually were a benefit.
I think like a great example of a constraint, like, the small property, you don't have a lot of routing options in certain parts of the property. It is like, we get over here, it's a small property, we have to fit this many holes in this section. A great example for anybody that gets out there is the first 4 holes.
Yep.
Where, your first 5 holes sit on a very kind of like narrow rectangular piece of ground. And I don't think anyone would set out to build a golf course and be like, you know what, we're going to go back and forth the first 4 holes.
Right.
So you go out, back. And, but they like at least have a really diverse set. And when we talk about land, rambunctious, they have an extremely diverse set of landforms in that out and back that make it work. 2 holes that play in opposite directions, play up on the ridges. One has a boundary line, one doesn't. And then 2 holes play in the valley, but one has a giant landform in the middle of it. And it works really, like, from that sense, it works really well because there's diversity. Those holes, like, it makes for a really thrilling and like an ass kicker start. They are hard golf holes. It makes an impression on you. Yeah. But like that would, if you had a sprawling site, a big site, I can't imagine that you'd ever have the first 4 holes playing back and forth.
No. I mean, we had a lot of feedback of, well, you can't run 4 holes parallel. Well, why not? The topography is so different. I mean, hell, you can't even see the second hole from the first hole. They're running parallel, and you don't even know the second hole's there. When you look across the valley, you're looking at the third hole. You can't even see the second hole because it's so low in the valley. So, I mean, and this goes back to our rambunctious conversation, had the landforms been similar, then I do think it's a problem, of routing the same stuff back and forth. But because the topography was so different, it really didn't concern us all that much. And the other thing too is, routing it's all about trade-offs when you have, a small site. So, I mean, in that first 5 holes, there's different ways to do that routing. Like you can have a hole that kind of cuts across the valley or plays diagonal to the valley. And we had plenty of routings where we tried that. We experimented with it. Like, what if we only have 3 holes in this valley or in this section of property? And what we found is, you pay the piper later on in the routing. That if you don't get 5 solid holes in this section of the property, you're going to have a shitty hole later in the round. It's just going to happen. And so you were kind of, you were deferring the inevitable. And so we realized after all these routings that you need 5 strong holes. And we had 5 strong holes in that section of the property. And any other attempt to do it differently, you'd pay later on with a weak hole or maybe 2 weak holes.
I think like when I've gotten a couple weeks to think about the property, or just the whole project. Like, I think my favorite thing about the project is the small site. Yeah. Is when I think about the round, it felt like I was like flying through it. Which I think is something that like is rare with modern golf courses, where you feel like you are just like the round's going quick. And I think I like the idea of, it's kind of become the gospel that you need this massive property to build a golf course. It's still a big property, but you do not it doesn't, the standard doesn't have to be you need 400 acres to build a golf course.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a bad standard for golf courses when we look at the next 30 years of golf. Yeah. Like, there has to be smaller site golf courses.
Yeah. And it's an expensive proposition too, if you believe that you need that. I mean, and even still, I mean, Broomsedge can stretch to 7,500 yards. I mean, we can test the best, if you will. But, the other constraint that's worth noting here is that I bought this land with an agricultural loan as just a poor schmuck. So I didn't have the money to buy 400, 500, 600 acres. Like my price point was like, we needed a piece of land that was, just big enough for a great golf course and nothing more. Soaking wet. It needed to be what it needed to be because I couldn't take out a bigger loan than that. So another constraint that I think led to a better product in the end.
Well, I wanted to get to that. I wanted to get to your winding path to being a golf course architect and golf developer. I mean, you got two great distinctions in a matter of a couple of years, but your career, your list of academic achievements it's just a very, very interesting story to getting to where you are today and what you're doing today. So your life, I would say 15 years ago, what did your life look like at that point?
15, what was 15 years ago? So
I don't know.
40 now, so that's 25. So I was in the Air Force.
Yeah, that's I figured. I figured that's what it was about, as far from what you're doing now.
I actually think, oddly enough, 15 years ago on this day, what was that? Was that 2009?
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, I was in Afghanistan. That's where I was 15 years ago. It's been weird. But man, it's been a hell of a ride. I guess I'm just don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And I hope that I still never do. I don't know.
This is what I tell people all the time, like younger people all the time. Like, they get obsessed with like what I'm doing. It's like life's a winding road, and every decision will lead you to a different endpoint. Totally. And it's like, I think that's the amazing thing. I think, it's so easy to, when you get to middle age, to think back to different moments and be like, oh, and it's like, well, like if I had done that, like I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And, you wouldn't have, like, if you had done something differently, you probably are not sitting here with a golf course at this point in your life. Yeah. So let's get, so you played high school golf. You were a golf nut. Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in South Florida. Not a lot of great golf courses. I grew up playing between the palms and the condos and the lakes. That was my golf experience. And then really my first kind of eye-opening event was when my dad took me up to TPC Sawgrass, and I'm like, oh, this is different than. No offense to my home course. I love it, but this is different than Pembroke Lakes Country Club, and I started asking myself, why do I like this better than that? I mean, ostensibly I'm hitting the same white ball into the same hole. Why do I feel so much different when I play Sawgrass as opposed to Pembroke Lakes? And so I got Pete Dye's, what was it called? Bury Me in a Pot Bunker. I mean, I was a young kid at this stage, and I got the bug immediately. And I was always fascinated with this question of, what makes one golf course better than the other? And it was something that, I mean, it was a hobby for a long, long time. I had read all the books. I had traveled extensively and thought a lot about, what makes one better than the other. And so this is all happening, through high school. And then I, went off to college, and then I was in the Air Force for a while. And then I did education reform, and then I did housing reform. And then I was in DC, working at a think tank, banging my head against the wall, working with Congress. And we had we were living in DC, but there were some family circumstances that caused us to move closer to my dad, who was retired in Pinehurst. It wasn't a hard sell for me. I mean, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to go to Pinehurst. So I was working remotely in DC from Pinehurst, and I emailed Kyle Franz, and the Southern Pines project was just kicking off. And it was just kind of one of those midlife moments of like, yeah, what the hell? Maybe he'll let me like ride around in a golf cart and see how this works. I don't know. It'd be cool. And so we had lunch together, and I'm like, can I just kind of like hang out and watch? I'll go dig a hole or something if you need me to. You don't have to pay me or anything. Just like kind of let me hang out. And he's like, yeah, the hell with that. Like, let's get you in a machine. Let's see what you can do. So I started like probing the greens to see where Ross had the original perimeters. And I'm out there with a stake, like probing through the ground, seeing if I could feel gravel. And then I'm drawing it up and we're talking about kind of green concepts. And I felt like I always had I had a good design IQ, but I didn't really know the mechanics of how you do all this stuff. So just, started doing all that. And Kyle was, Kyle, to his great credit, was not like, he welcomed me with open arms. He's like, you're an interesting guy. Let's come on in and see what you got. And I would go late afternoons after all the shapers would leave. I'd get an excavator and I'd walk it over into the woods, and I would dig a hole and try to build a bunker. And just like learn how the machine worked. And then I'd fill it back in and I'd try again the next day until I could build something that looked somewhat like a bunker. And then I shaped the bunker on 7, and it looked pretty good. And then I kept going and I did one on 6. And then, by the end of the project, I was shaping. And then that led to, what'd that lead? So then it was Eastward Ho with Kyle, and then did some work on the practice facility at Raleigh Country Club, and then, Luling, and then Cabot Citrus Farms. And in those couple years, with Kyle, did a lot of evaluating raw land for prospective clients as well. Like a client would reach out and say, hey, what about this piece of land? And so kind of learned what to look for in a particular site. I had a lot of topographic background as an intel officer in the Air Force. I was really good at the topographic map, so that helped. So I kind of got dangerous. I don't know.
You just, you breeze through a very interesting backstory here. Yeah. So I want to dig in a little bit to before you got into the golf course industry, just exactly what you were doing. So you play high school golf, you go to college, you join the ROTC, and then eventually you join the Air Force.
Yeah.
Would you say at this point you're kind of completely disconnected from the game of golf, or were you still playing a decent
Pretty
amount?
Much. No, I didn't play much. I would watch the 4 majors on TV, maybe play once or twice a year, and would read like one golf architecture book, every 6 months. And that was the extent of it. But I wasn't playing that much. It was really busy. This was the time when Iraq and Afghanistan were, in the 8th circle of hell. And it was just a really, really busy time. So I kind of I just wasn't involved in the game all that much.
And what were you doing for the Air Force?
I was an intel officer. So I was attached to an F-15 fighter squadron, and I was their intel officer. And then we went to Afghanistan with that squadron in late 2009. And that basically meant a range of stuff where like mission planning and target analysis and all that sort of stuff.
Let's focus on the positive. What was the best part about being in Afghanistan?
Beautiful topography.
Really?
Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I rember when it got, you'd have like the snow-capped mountains, and it was just, we were in kind of northern Afghanistan near to, Kabul. And it was just a gorgeous, gorgeous. It was like, man, this would be a great tourist spot if, the Taliban weren't, here. And it was beautiful. I remember small F. Yeah. It was just a gorgeous, gorgeous country. And the other thing that really stuck with me were the Afghan people. They worked on site. They were mechanics. They worked on buses, and you got to meet some of them, and they wanted the same thing you and I want. They wanted their kid to be able to go to school and safely, and they wanted opportunity. And it was, they were very gracious people. And most of the people we worked, they didn't want the Taliban there any more than we did. It was a good experience. It's one of those experiences where it's like, I would never want to go back because it's war and it sucks. But it was an experience that I would, I'll always cherish.
I've had a few things tossed my way of potential sites for golf in the Middle East. Yeah. And there's some like crazy sand dunes on the ocean in the Middle East. Like it is not inconceivable that there is great golf there at some point in
totally. I would look outside the base gates and be, I think you could get a little little shelf green in there, a little nice one. Looks about 130 yards. You get a little shelf green in there. And Kabul, I think, at least at the time, had a 9-hole course that was, it was dirt. But I don't know if it's still there.
Did you play it?
No. I never played it.
That reminds me of, I had Thad Layton on the podcast who worked for Arnold Palmer Design.
Yeah.
His first project, he went off to, I think it was Kazakhstan.
Really?
He gets hired by Arnold Palmer Design. They're like, all right, you're going to
Kazakhstan.
Yeah. And he gets off the plane and there's like soldiers with Uzis and it's just like, or maybe AK-47s. But yeah, I just have this image of you in an army base with your golf architecture book in the Middle East, reading golf, looking out at the expanse. What would you say? Life full of experiences, right? Like what was it about that job that has helped you the most doing what you're doing now?
On a very technical level, like GIS, topographic type work. That came in that was very, very handy to be able to look at a topographic map and know what the land is doing. Particularly when you're looking at,
Can you explain like how you were like from the Air Force sense, with your role there using topographics and like how were you using that? Like what were you doing that then made it really easy to look at it? Like I think like for a layman who's like somebody sends somebody a topographic map and it's just like lines everywhere and it's like what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, it's gibberish.
So like what were you doing with that in the Air Force that then made it kind of a breeze for golf architecture?
Essentially mission planning. So if there was a target we were looking at, you'd look at a topographic map and you'd have to see, well, if the bomb comes in at this angle, it's actually going to hit the mountain before it hits the bad guy because there's a freaking mountain in the way. So we got to come in from the other direction. I mean, that's the really simple way to explain it. Or you're not going
to see it until this point, right?
Right.
Like that type of stuff.
Yeah. And even on like collateral damage type stuff. I mean, we went to great lengths to try to avoid civilian casualties. And topography plays a role there of, hey, if there's a blast that happens in X spot, what's the topography doing between X spot and, that village over there? Is that village sitting downhill from where the explosion is going to happen? If so, that's a problem. Maybe there's a topographic feature in the way that will protect it. So, it's all like, it's being able to read a topo map and being able to understand land contours is, it's life and death stuff over there.
So now instead of worrying about how a bomb might function in the land, you worry about how water might move and
right, exactly. Yeah.
Whether a slope's too severe for a golf hole.
Exactly. I worry if a 4-iron will stay on this hillside or if it'll eject it over the green. Yeah. A little bit lower stakes, but a little bit more fun at the same time.
So after the Air Force, you kind of breezed over this. You got into you went back to school. You got degrees from Duke and Harvard.
Yep.
And what were they in? And you got into government work?
Yeah, I got it. Duke was for international relations, and Harvard was education policy.
And what was the thought at this point? What am I gonna do? What was
I still had the GI Bill, and I was just basically trying to postpone real life and just stay in school. So I got a smorgasbord of different things, but I wanted to go into education reform. I had the Duke degree I had started while I was in the Air Force, international relations, obvious connection there. But when I got out of the Air Force, I had my eye toward education policy. Education's important. It's our children's future, blah, 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 all that stuff. I believe it. And so after Harvard, I went to Tennessee and worked on education reform there, and then went to Dallas and worked on education reform there. And really my work in Dallas was on desegregation, trying to integrate schools. Here we are, many, many decades after Brown versus Board, and our schools are essentially as segregated as they were when Brown was decided. Our schools are still, incredibly segregated by race and class, and it's largely a function of housing patterns. There's no explicit laws anymore that say this is a white school and this is a black school, but in Dallas, that's how it plays out because our neighborhoods are segregated. So worked a lot on policies that would try to, get kids from different socioeconomic backgrounds into the same classroom together. There's a whole bevy of research that shows that all kids perform better in school when they're learning in a diverse environment. So that's what I worked on in Dallas.
Well, it makes sense. You also become like a more well-rounded individual.
100%.
You think about I mean, as we're talking, the more diverse your background and skills and expertise are, the more likely you're going to come at any kind of solution, any kind of situation with a different mindset, which is beneficial in the world.
Oh yeah. It's an essential skill set. I mean, you could argue that many of the ills we're dealing with today are because people don't fundamentally understand each other and never have really had a meaningful interaction with somebody that's different from them. I think a lot of the villainization we see in, particularly in politics today is a root cause of that. So yeah, I think it's essential for our civic health to get, to get kids learning together. I mean, Thurgood Marshall said once that, he said, how can our children ever learn to live together if they don't learn together? And yeah, I spent many years of my life trying to solve that problem.
At this point, has golf re-entered your life? Yes.
So golf seriously re-entered my life when I was in Tennessee. I was working at the Tennessee Department of Education, and I had just left Harvard. I caddied at the country club at Brookline for a few loops just so I could play the course. And then they told me I needed to shave, and so I didn't caddy anymore.
Did you play? Did you get to play though?
Oh yeah. Of course. Yeah, I'd shave till Kingdom Come to play it. But after I played it a couple times, I'd move on. And I was skipping too much class, and I just because the only times they'd let us play was a Monday, and I had class, and so I was skipping too much class to play the country club. So I had to move on. I feel like
one of the Harvard would be a hard place to skip class and succeed.
It wasn't ideal. But it got that bug going again. Of like, man, this is really good. So then
what's your favorite thing about that course?
The country club? Oh, just again, the topography. I mean, like the rock outcroppings.
That's a rambunctious piece of property.
Yeah. It's incredible. Just that land moves in unpredictable ways. That's what I loved about it.
That's the thing. It's like when I think about that course, it's got probably 5 of the most unique holes that I've ever seen. You think about 3, you think about really 4 is epic hole, 5's an epic hole, 10 is insane. There are a lot of the par 5. I get mixed up with the routings. There's 14 on the championship routing that goes up.
Yeah, you aim at the pole in the background.
I hate the pole. They got to get rid of the pole. There's got to be a reform. Yeah. You worked on education reform. Maybe now you could join me on big flag stick reform.
Yeah, I like that.
I think we need to remove big flag sticks from golf
blind,
society.
It's blind. I like it. That'll be the next task. But
it's just as important as education reform.
Just as important as desegregation. I mean, these things are co-equal pillars of a healthy civic life. It's an awesome special spot.
So looping at the country club's kind of what got you back into it.
Yeah, it just got me the bug of, wow, this is special. I like being here. I didn't loop for very long. But it was just, it was a special vibe. And then, the program at Harvard was a quick, accelerated master's. It was a year. So before I knew it, I was in Tennessee, and this is when I really, started to lose my mind around golf. I was in Tennessee. I worked in downtown Nashville, but I bought a house up in Goodlettsville, which was kind of 25 minutes north. And I bought a house on 5 acres. And so
Are you married at the time? Or you?
I had just started dating my now wife at this time.
All right.
And she actually helped me do what I'm about to tell you, which,
so you need, every story of going golf insane starts with a very willing partner,
Absolutely. She helped me do what I'm about to say, which is that because I had, acreage in my front yard, well, why not build a par 3? And so I rented a backhoe. I mean, I didn't know shit.
How much did it cost to rent the backhoe?
It wasn't that much. It was like a week. And I think I probably took off work and I just like worked all day long on it, but I didn't know what I was doing. So part of it was just like trying to learn how to not tip it over.
Did you have to get a permit?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think I had to call the septic because we were on septic out there. And I think I had to call to make sure I wasn't going to hit a septic system. But
that would be an amazing story. You disrupt the entire neighborhood septic system.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to build a par 3 in my backyard.
Yeah. What were you doing out there? I mean, we had people pull off. It was Licton Pike was the road. They'd pull off Licton Pike and they'd say, what are you doing here? Is this like a future lake or like, what are you doing? I'm building a golf course. I had to take out a few trees and I didn't know what I was doing. So like I built the bunker with like sandbags. Like I didn't know how to shape things. So I dug a hole and then just built up the lip with like sandbags and I covered it with sod. And my wife at the time, just girlfriend was helping me do this. And I mean, what more of a keeper can you possibly find on planet Earth than that? So I knew instantly, she was the one. And it actually ended up looking pretty cool. I'll have to send you a picture, but, it kind of looked, the bunkering a little bit looked like the country club with kind of like the folded edges. The sandbags actually gave it a cool kind of folded, sunken in look.
I bet it would get like a nice shadow to it too.
Yeah,
like, cause like, that's how Gil builds the small, like mini revetted face on his bunkers. And then he has the grass come over it to get that shading look. A sandbag would do probably like a similar thing. Talk about it could be a new bunker construction method.
It could be. I mean, it held up pretty well. Now so I think it was featured, who has that article? I think Golf Digest has the best backyard golf holes in America. And I think I'm on there alongside, Tiger and VJ and John Smoltz. And it's the only time I'll be listed in the same sentence as those guys, but it made, and there's a pretty good holes, like a really kind of small green, 130 yards. And, did you see it? Yeah.
It's in like I remember I've now down in this rabbit hole of where I'm looking at the old carousels of the internet of yesteryear.
Yes, this was a while ago. These were
where it's not an article; it's just a carousel of images.
Yes, exactly.
It's just like what? Wait, why was this the internet for a period of time?
Yeah. So I mean, it was pretty fun.
It's amazing. It's actually amazing when you scroll through this carousel. I'll post this in the show notes. You scroll through the carousel, and every hole is like kind of like fake looking.
Yeah,
and yours like is kind of like it looks like a real golf hole.
It's plausible. Yeah.
I mean, the green's tiny. What is it? 2,000 square feet.
If that,
1,500.
I mean, if that. I didn't have a very big mower, so I had to keep it small. The maintenance budget was pretty freaking limited, Andy. I had to keep the features small. But I mean, we played this thing. We played it closest to the pin at this thing during my wedding rehearsal. One of my buddies knifed one into the actual house because the house is not. You can't see it in the picture, but the house is not that far away. Like the screen is only 30 yards from the house, and you're sort of aiming right at the house. But the sad thing is when we moved, we had to bulldoze it because apparently no buyer. Our realtor kept saying like, nobody wants this shit. Like they don't want to have to maintain a golf hole in their front yard. Like you just gotta get rid of it or we can't sell the house. And I'm like,
you had to bulldoze it.
Yeah. So it's not there anymore. Like if you look at Google Earth,
do you have the LiDAR data? Can we recreate it somewhere?
Yeah, we didn't have the budget for LiDAR. Yeah, maybe that's the next big restoration project. It's the next Lido, really.
I mean, you got to have like an acre that you could put it at Broomsedge in the corner.
That's true. I got a lot of photos of it.
Right?
Maybe we still have to build a practice facility. Maybe that's one of the greens.
It doesn't seem like a functional practice green, though. It's pretty small.
pretty small. Yeah, pretty small. Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't even putt up. I mean, it was like whatever the Bermuda grass was from Lowe's or Home Depot. Like it wasn't, I didn't have Ultra Dwarf on this green. You know, I got like a low mower and I scalped the shit out of it, and you could sort of putt on it. But, you know,
the grain had to be insane.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was rolling at a bumpy 4. It was not the best.
When I lived in Chicago, I always had this dream of building a putting green in my front yard, like very much in the front yard.
Yeah.
And then just putting putters out there and like having it be like a neighborhood putting green.
Yeah.
Like where like if you're walking by, you could just hit some putts.
Right.
I don't know why these don't exist is like something I like frankly wonder about.
Yeah.
I always think about this too when I drive down the road and I see like a tiny little acre, like an acre of land that's for sale.
Yeah.
That's like clearly nobody's is like, why isn't anyone like tried to figure out a business to just build a single golf hole? Right. And it's like, you can pay $4 to come play.
Yeah. It's just a drive. It's a drive up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, drive up and you play one golf hole and you're done. Like I'd be into that. I would be like, I was thinking I've got like a couple weeks. I'm playing. The next time I know I'm playing golf is in November.
Yeah.
And I've thought about maybe going to the range or like in mid-November, right? Yeah. And I've thought about maybe like I want to go to the range. I want to play decent, and it's like, but like I really just want to like take like 2 swings. That's all I want. But I don't want to go to like if I could just drive by, stop and hit a shot, hit 3 putts, I'd feel like I'm staying sharp.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 15 minutes and you're out. Yeah, and the thing once you put a pin in the ground, people know what it is. And that was the thing. Nobody knew what the hell I was doing. But once I put a pin in the green, people would come up to your door and say, hey, can I, like, this looks pretty cool. Can I hit a shot? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. You know?
Did people stop by?
Yeah. Yeah. People would stop by because the tee box was right by the road.
See, so I love this.
Yeah. It was pretty fun, but it was, you know, unfortunately it was short lived, but
I think that's like just the difference between Scotland and America, right? Like if you think about like the kids course or like the putting green in downtown North Berwick, it's just like a putting green. It's just there. Yep. Like, I don't understand why they can't be parts of parks, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There was one in Dallas that I remember at the Clyde Warren Park. They had it was an AstroTurf putting green, but it was just there. There were just putters laying on the ground and some balls, and it was always in use. It was a great thing. Should be more of it.
How did you do you have like a moment where you decided I'm building this golf hole? Because I assume this is the moment that led to you just drop my political career eventually. I mean, this has got to be the moment, right? When you decided to build this golf hole, that you just put your foot in the ground, you know, screw up my education.
Right.
I'm going to do something completely different with my life.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, do you know when you're going crazy? I don't know. It just happens. Just one day I woke up and it felt like the right thing to do. I don't remember like an aha. It was just like, I was kind of, I think I was a first time homeowner and I'm just like, wow, look at all this land I have. Well, what do you do with lots of land? Well, obviously you build golf, and that just kind of went from there. I don't know. I felt like I could build a cool hole. You know,
did you have a lot of concepts? Like what was the ideation around? Did you just start digging stuff?
Well, I knew it was going to be about 130 yard par 3 because that's kind of what I had to work with from the corner of the road to where this location would be. So I knew it was going to be a par 3. I knew it was going to be relatively short. And beyond that, I was really at the time I was kind of thinking of 16 at the country club, just something basic with like a, you know, kind of an intimidating fronting bunker and nothing too complicated, and see what happens. So that was kind of what was in my head when I was doing it, because I was fresh off my oh so many loops at the country club. So I was just kind of thinking like, 16 at the country club would be kind of cool. Let's do that.
Did you ever make a hole-in-one on it?
No. I never made a hole-in-one in my entire life until a few weeks ago at the opening round at Broomsedge.
First round ever played there.
First round ever at Broomsedge. And luckily
guy that bought the land, built the course.
Yeah.
You make a hole-in-one in your first round.
pretty freak. And luckily we were in a sixsome, so there's many that can attest to the veracity of this story. And the truth is, I didn't hit it very good. It was a skanky 9-iron that, had I hit it flush, it would have airmailed the green. But I hit it just skanky enough to where it kind of like had no spin when it hit the green, and it just trickled right in the hole. It was pretty wild. And that was my first hole-in-one ever.
I think that maybe the same day or the next day, I was playing golf at Old Barnwell.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how stupid hole-in-ones are. The guy I was playing with, a friend of mine, he hit like an incredible shot. I mean, the second he hit it, I was like, go in the hole.
Yeah,
like that's an amazing. And it ended up like, I swear I've never seen a ball hang more over a lip and not go in. Like we got up to the ball and it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So then we go and play the kids course at Old Barnwell, first hole. So this is the next par 3 he plays after like just getting robbed of a hole-in-one.
So it was on 17 at Old Barnwell?
17 at Old Barnwell.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Next, so we go to the kids course, first hole. He literally like hits like a half shank.
Yeah.
And it catches the slope.
Yeah.
Kicks left, and I go, I think that went in.
Yeah.
We can't see it. And we get up there, it's in the hole. It's just like, this is why hole-in-ones are dumb.
Yeah.
You know, hole outs are better than hole-in-ones. Like hole out eagles, albatrosses, because it requires 2 good shots.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to be in that position in the first place. Yeah, it was kind of a sheepish feeling. Like it didn't feel like it should have gone on, but it was a pretty damn good story.
It was meant to be. That's a moment that was meant to be.
It was.
So let's go to like, you move back to, you keep doing the politics career. I guess that's safe to say, politics.
Yeah, that's a good catch-all for it. Sure.
Catch-all.
Yeah.
And you're in Southern Pines, you're doing that remotely.
Yep.
Why did you pick Kyle to reach out to? What made you pick him?
Yeah, so it was the Southern Pines project was just starting. Like literally, they were days away from putting dirt in the ground, and I wasn't gonna I was still working full time, kids in school. It's not like I was gonna go travel to some far off place to do this. So it was like, oh shit, this is happening in my backyard. I had loved what Kyle had done at Mid Pines and Pine Needles, and even some of the work on number 3. I love number 3, best kept secret in town. I love some of the work there. So I was already a fan of what Kyle had done in the neighborhood. And so I reached out, and I guess, I don't know. I mean, Kyle was still, Kyle didn't have any new builds at the time. He was still, locally he was pretty well known, but didn't quite have the profile that he has now. And so maybe that was a benefit to me. Like I often think, like, what if I just stone cold emailed him, and I was not thinking I'd get a response back. And then I got a response saying, let's have lunch. But had I done that to a bigger, more established firm, I probably don't get an email back. So yeah, stars aligned. And Kyle and I hit it off. I mean, we're still, really good friends, and we just hit it off. We share a lot of things of common interest together, not just golf. So yeah, I
didn't know that Kyle, I know Kyle pretty well. I didn't know there was common interest besides golf with Kyle.
Oh,
he's a golf maniac.
Yeah, but he's also perhaps an even greater maniac about college football, and he's a Notre Dame fan.
No way.
He's
I didn't know that.
He could tell you the statistics from a Notre Dame game in 1954. I mean, he's a savant. He's a savant.
I love that I just found this out.
Yeah. So I think that he jokes, and I don't know that he's actually joking, but he says at the time, like, because I went to undergrad at Notre Dame, that's probably why he emailed me, right? He needed somebody to talk about Notre Dame football with, but he's a huge Notre Dame guy.
That's the Bill Core. You've heard the Bill Core Pete Dye story, have you?
Yeah.
He thinks that he came to meet him just to watch the Dolphins game. He had to get out of the house.
Yep.
And he came to his hotel room or wherever Bill was staying, and he turned on the Dolphins game, and he's like, "Yeah, you can work for me."
Yeah, it's weird. Life is weird. It's weird stuff. I mean, I remember that first lunch with Kyle. I mean, we talked a little bit about golf, but it was a lot of Notre Dame football.
All right. When you look at that Southern Pines project, what would be your biggest takeaway about golf architecture, from thinking about it, building a backyard hole, to like, I am on a full scale project here.
Yeah. Yeah. The teamwork nature of it. I mean, number one, how welcoming people were to a schmuck like me. Like, I mean, like the Shapers, like, Eamon Sullivan and Matt Smallwood. I mean, like, they were cool with me hopping in their machine and trying something out. Like, they were welcoming about it, and they taught me stuff. And so it was a very welcoming, team oriented environment. And I realized just how much that it really is a team. I think when you're not in it, you sort of think like, the architect is the guy doing it all, but there's so much happening at the shaper and laborer level that's making that place what it is. And it's a 30-piece band, and everybody's got to be going in sync. So I just never really realized you sort of have this idea in your head of like the architect savant that's orchestrating everything. And it's true to some extent, but often it's just, the architect saying, here's two concepts, go make it happen. And so that was a big takeaway. The other big takeaway was I did not realize how much water plays a role in everything that is done. It's all like, okay, where's the water going? Where's the water going? Where's the water going? I never had really thought about where water moves and how it moves and how you get it to move in different directions. I never realized how much water management was a key piece of architecture. I sort of thought like, it's artsy fartsy stuff, and the lip line of a bunker, and maybe we do a finger, maybe we do a tongue, and then there is an element to that, but there's a lot of function to it as well that I never really appreciated. And just, I mean, like the transformation of Southern Pines just makes you realize that if you got good bones in the land, you can do magic.
I feel like water is one of those things that like you don't think is cool, and this is like very nitty gritty. But then once you get like really into it, it's like one of the most fascinating aspects of it is like moving water around, how like really talented people hide how they're moving water. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, like that's like, to me, the most amazing thing is when you walk off a green and you see a cut like 40 yards up a hill that like you would never, and it's like, oh, that's like how they're draining this, keeping the water off this green in area so you don't have any basins around here,
Yeah, right.
It's
right.
like,
and just like how much reaction there is to water movement, even after the shit. Like I remember the 11th hole at Southern Pines, that kind of epic, drivable par 4 now, that kind of capes around the water there. And I remember, we were in the middle of summer, and I think I had just shaped a couple bunkers on the left side and the right side, and we had a really big rainstorm, and it like demolished, because you're talking about sandy soils. This stuff washes. You could build a water bar on a bunker, but sometimes if the rain comes down hard enough and fast enough, bunker goes bye until it's stabilized with vegetation. And like I remember going in the next day, and I was just like devastated. Like, oh my, like look at the wash. Like this is biblical. The whole project's and what I learned from the pros was, nah, man, this is a good thing. It's good to learn this now. We're seeing where the water's going. Look at the rivulets. Look at how the water's moving. All we need to do is build the water bar further up the hill. Like obviously the water bar can't be down here because it's too late in the game. The water's already gained enough speed, and it's going to obliterate this bunker edge. But if we catch it 30 yards up the hill and build a waterway in the woods that nobody's going to see, we can redirect it this way and it goes out. Just follow the rivulets. And it was fascinating. And but yeah, I mean, so much of it was water management, but also like a fair amount of reactionary water management based on the latest storm and seeing what it does. Cause you don't always know exactly what the water is going to do in a fierce storm. And it's helpful to see it. I mean, we like our drainage system at Broomsedge, that's how we built it. We would shape a hole, and then it would rain like cats and dogs, and we'd go and look at the rivulets and see where the water was moving, and we mapped our drainage accordingly. We didn't really have like a going in drainage plan. We shaped it. We saw where the water was moving, and we based our drainage plan around that.
I think this also ties back to what you talked about at the beginning, where you talked about 60 sites, finding the best site.
Yeah.
Like some things that help with drainage and water management is vegetation.
Yep.
The less you have to move on a site, the more native vegetation you keep.
Yes.
And the better suited you're going to be for withstanding big rain events, because you're moving less earth, so you're disturbing less land, and the way that a site's drained for thousands of years is intact.
Yep. Yeah. If you don't have to mess with it, don't mess with it. Leave it alone. Keep it stable, because the minute you disturb soil, that's when it washes. And it was a pretty challenging thing too, because there were trees everywhere. So when the timber folks come in, I mean, they make a mess of the place. I mean, there's timber slash everywhere. And so sometimes you would find, timber slash among like really, beautiful vegetation that you really don't want to disturb, but you also just kind of want to, for sake of efficiency, you kind of just want to go in there with a root rake and a bulldozer and get that crap out of there. But at the same time, you're going to disturb the soil. So it's a very delicate balance. Erosion control is so critical to a project, not only in terms of like the outcome of the golf course itself, but in terms of cost. I mean, a lot of golf courses go way the hell over budget because they can't get erosion under control.
Yeah, it's like a killer that nobody ever thinks about when you start a project is just like, okay, because like, it's just the time. Earth moving is the most expensive thing, and to control water usually requires earth moving.
Yep.
So you hit on this earlier. You were not a billionaire, or even I don't know your financial situation, a multi-millionaire. You were a normal person.
Yeah, I worked for a nonprofit. Yeah,
who bought a piece of land and built a golf course. Can we just look this is everybody's dream. How did you actually do it?
So I took out an agricultural loan, and
so we searched. As we said earlier, you scoured this area,
found the site I wanted, and then and then it's like, okay, I could try to get investors on board right now, but that's herding cats. This land's going to be gone by that stage. So you know what I'm going to do? Take a leap of faith. I'm going to buy this thing with a loan, and I'll figure the rest out later. But the essential ingredient here is the land. I can nail that down now. I have tremendous faith in this thing. And then the other thing was, what's the risk? It's land. God's not making any more of it. If I can't figure this thing out in a couple years, if I can't get any investors, if people are like, who the hell are you? What are you talking about? Then I'll just sell it, and maybe it's a wash. I mean, it's not like an existential risk because it's land. So then I just, got the land, and then started to find partners. The original guys, Andrew Denenberg and David McFarlane and Aaron Oberman were kind of the original amigos here. And we scraped together some angel funds to do, permitting and wetlands delineations and the routing and all that sort of stuff, to at least have a plan that we could execute. And then once we had the plan ready to go, then, we needed construction funds, and we had talked to, a lot of different investors and made sure we shared a similar vision. And I was very clear that I wanted to maintain control of the golf. And so you talk to a lot of potential investors where we weren't lined up.
I imagine it's hard to find, like, that's got to be one of the toughest aspects of a golf course, is like in trying, like, when you don't have the money to fund it, when you're looking for people to fund it, they want it to be their golf course.
Totally. Yeah. And they don't, one guy said to me, well, you're no Tom Doak. Well, no shit. I know that, like, thanks for letting me know. Thanks, Tips. So there was a lot of that. I was Bob Dylan I'm a big Dylan fan. And he said something once in like a 60 Minutes interview that always stuck with me. He said, sometimes you just have this feeling about yourself that nobody else knows. And you just have you have this picture in your mind of what you're capable of. And you don't tell anybody, because if you tell somebody, they're going to kill it. Everybody's good at killing ideas. And so I just kind of had this faith that I could, do something really cool here. And it was about finding the right the right investor who shared that faith. And then, Cody Sundberg came along, and believed in it, and, didn't want to meddle in the golf stuff, and, let me be in charge of the construction and funded it. And, and the rest is history. I mean, but we had, we had explored, conversations with a lot of investors where it just didn't work for whatever reason or the other. But, finally, your Cinderella comes along.
Was there a moment when you didn't believe it was going to happen?
For most of the time.
What was like the most dire moment of lacking self-belief?
So it was a struggle to find some investors, and so we had made the decision, me and Andrew and David and Aaron and Brian Kaufman, the original guys, of, well, you know what? Let's just go out and start shaping shit. Maybe it'll be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We have, $400 in the bank, that covers a mini excavator for a week. I'll go rough shape the 6th green. And I don't know, maybe momentum creates more momentum, and we'll just start doing it that way. And then, so we're out there, and I duped my dad into help, like picking up stumps and trees, and David McFarland duped his dad to come out, and so we're out there a bunch of total schmucks out there. It's July.
I've always believed in this idea. There used to be Canal Shores just got redone in Chicago.
Yeah.
But I used to take part in this. I believe this is a way you can do this with total golf tragics like ourselves.
Oh yeah.
You can just get people to come do miscellaneous
Absolutely.
jobs on a golf
Crazy
course. You can be
stuff.
hey, do you want to, I dug a bunker at this golf course with a shovel. It was awful. It was I remember I got done. I was like, why did I just do this? What? That was an awful morning of work. I was exhausted for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
But you can dupe people into doing anything when it's golf related.
Absolutely. My wife makes that point a lot. You can go build a fence for the boundary line on 15 at Broomsedge, but you can't, you can't mow the freaking lawn. I mean, come on. And my answer is, well, it's not golf related. I mean, I don't want to do it.
You had to have a golf hole in your backyard.
Exactly. I mowed that thing regularly. We just need more golf features in the yard. But I remember that being a bleak moment because it was July in Columbia, hot. We're just, I'm shaping this, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be overgrown in a couple of months. Nobody's going to see this. What am I doing? I'm just hoping we can get a nice picture out of it, and then maybe somebody will have belief. And then the AC broke in the excavator, and those things are they're like greenhouses when the AC goes out. And I'm soaked. I'm dirty. It was just what the hell? This isn't going to work. This is stupid. But, then you get done with it, you take a picture, and you're like, yeah, I could see this. This could be a cool green. All right, I kind of see it. And you just keep going. But you need a few screws loose to do this, I think.
You have to be a crazy person to do anything of this nature.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. There's
to go out and try and do something completely unrelated to your previous existence on Earth is, that you have to be a complete lunatic. I think when I think back to my personal journey with this business, for example, when I think back now, I think about just how naive I was.
Mm-hmm.
And being naive is actually a superpower.
Absolutely.
If you have no clue how hard it's going to be, it's a great thing because you're still positive. You're positive. And some people can say I'm negative and stuff. And I was talking to someone one day, and they're like, I mean, you're the most positive person I know. And I was like, what? And they're like, you can't not be positive and be an entrepreneur. And that's effectively what this journey is. It's you have to, you can't ever look at, it would have failed. It would have crumbled. You wouldn't have been able to get up to have the 30th investor call that told you no, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a benefit in not knowing the constraints. And this is true even on the design side of things as well. There's a benefit to having some naivete on your team to say, oh, can we do this? And maybe it's a horrendous idea because of erosion or something, but maybe it's something that nobody had previously thought of, and it's because their constraints kind of told them that that's not a thing you do. So it can be, it can be a risk, but it can also be a real benefit.
Well, that's the thing with any industry, right? Like most of the fresh new ideas, like the guy that came up with Uber was not a taxi cab driver,
right?
And did not manage a taxi company, right?
Yep. Right.
The person that started Airbnb, I believe, was not in the hotel industry, right? They did not. Like this is how it works, right? Someone that is completely the vast majority of great ideas do not come from people that are entrenched in the industry. Of course, there are visionaries within industries, and they become, titans of the industry. But like, I think a lot of times the best ideas come from outside people that come into an industry, which
Absolutely.
is like, I think like what I'm fascinated about with like your background is like, like the topographical maps from the Air Force. But then like one of the things that's like a huge pain in the ass for most people to navigate with building a golf course and is like the permitting aspect. But you have a huge experience working in the public sector like that.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, that's like busy work,
Yeah. That was a relative easy part, going before the county council and getting the zoning. I mean, there wasn't a golf course in the county. And so there was no
in the
zoning.
Entire county.
Yeah, not in the county. There used to be, but it had closed. So they didn't have like a zoning category for a golf course. So they had to create a new zoning category. And that stuff didn't faze me because, again, that was par for the course. That was normal work. But yeah, it certainly came in handy there.
Is South Carolina going to become your second favorite team to Notre Dame? You're not going to run up against them very much.
That's an added benefit, is that we don't run up against them too much. But I think so. We've, the folks at the University of South Carolina have been real friendly to us. They want to come out and play. We've talked about hosting tournaments and whatnot. So they've been awesome to us. A couple of them are members, and so it's great. They've been a great neighbor. So yeah, I guess I root for South Carolina until they play Notre Dame.
All right, let's take a quick break to talk about our partner Stripe. Just like Club Champion, Stripe is a product that we've used for a really long time. Stripe helped me build this business, this podcast business, this online business, by making it super easy for somebody with a lot on their plate that doesn't really have technical expertise. So Stripe makes our payments go round. They work with a ton of businesses. So they serve over 2 million businesses of all sizes. So businesses like ours, but also huge companies like Alaska Airlines, Hertz, and the PGA. They power 1% of the total global GDP. That's insane. But they do this because they have a wide range of products. One of the coolest products that they have is their billing product. There they help more than 300,000 businesses, which is more than anybody else. And they have advanced billing software that can handle complex billing models, whether it's usage-based, a flat rate monthly subscription, an annual subscription like Club TFE, the way we use it. Basically, 80% of SaaS companies either already charge or plan to charge based on usage. And, the subscription world keeps growing and evolving, and Stripe billing will help you keep pace. So if you're interested in learning more about Stripe, go to stripe.com. Thanks to Stripe. And now back to Mike Koprowski. So I don't want to, you've worked with Kyle on pretty much all of your golf architecture projects. He was a part of this project. I think a lot of people will say this is a Kyle Franz golf course. I think that's kind of it's very much your golf course with Kyle, right? From an architecture standpoint, like it is a co-design, but like I think what generally happens is with co-designs is like the name people know more are usually they're going to say it's a Kyle Franz design. Is it safe to say? Is it right to say that this is a a true co-design, if not more your design than Kyle's.
Yeah, I mean, it's a true co-design for sure.
Yes.
I mean, it was kind of strange, right? Because I was sort of wearing owner hat on this one. So it was like apprentice kind of calling the shots. Now, there was never any drop down arguments about stuff. I mean, we see things pretty similarly, and Kyle was deferential to that. I mean, he knew the risk that I took here. So we're both classicalists. We both love the old stuff, but even under the classical umbrella, there's a spectrum, and Kyle and I are different enough to where there is a back and forth of ideas that happen.
You strike me, knowing both of you, as really like pretty opposite personalities.
Yeah. So the way that I describe it to people is, okay, so you have, under the classical umbrella, let's say you have Shinnecock on one end of the spectrum and National on the other end of the spectrum. Both
great comparison.
Both great golf courses. Shinny is like the straightforward, stern old lady, frank presentation, demanding questions, and National is the wily, fun uncle, capricious and humps and hollows and cork. I guess the Scottish analogy would be Muirfield in the old course, and so. I mean, both Kyle and I can sit around a table and talk about what we love about those golf courses all day long. But I bet if you put a gun to both of our heads, my initial design instincts are probably a little bit closer on the Shinnecock side of the spectrum, and Kyle's are probably a little bit closer to National side. And so at Broome, it was fun to marry those two things. And I think people will see. I mean, it's a very different golf course than Cabot Citrus Farms, for instance, which is very high on the Wiley scale. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that, it was a true co-design. And, ultimately, as the owner and the final decision maker, I mean, it's a weird sort of George Crump impersonation of owner and architect. But I mean, ultimately, it came down to, if there was a particular disagreement or a particular thing, I mean, it ultimately was my call as owner. So, but it was fun to marry our design instincts.
Boss turned.
Basically, yeah. But it never felt like that because we've worked together for so long and we're friends and we see like the number of differences that we have is relatively small. But it was a unique sort of environment.
So what is next for your career? And what's next would you say for Broomsedge? Where is it at in the whole process of its evolution, and where are you at with your career? This was a kind of, I would say, a half step towards solo design.
Maybe
a large step towards golf developer. What?
Yeah. I mean, I think about through this whole experience, I think about, okay, what did I like most? And it was certainly on the design side. The development side was fun. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But the real, what got me up in the morning was we can put that bunker in on 7. What are we going to do about the 6th green? That's the stuff that I found most fun. And that's the stuff that at its core is what got me into this was a love of golf course design. So I think that's a bug that I have, and I'll keep riding that horse until she kicks me off. I don't know what exactly comes next. I haven't really had time to think about it. We just opened a couple days ago, so I've just been go. But I hope there's more that we can do with Broomsedge. I hope that there's more outside of Broomsedge. I'm just I got the bug, and now I got to figure out what comes next. In terms of what's next for Broomsedge is, we'll keep filling out the membership roles. We got about 90 members right now, and we'll keep recruiting. I think the more that people see the golf course, the more buzz there is out there. And certainly our inbox has ticked up a lot in terms of member interest. We've gotten a lot of really, really good feedback about the golf course. And then moving on to, just the vertical construction, and, it's a largely national and regional membership. So making sure people have places to stay and getting the clubhouse going and all that sort of stuff. So, I think, there's, everybody involved with this had a really good time doing it. And if there's more opportunities to keep going with it, we'll probably keep going with it because it was pretty fun. So why stop now?
Yeah, it's what's you've been open for a couple weeks, small amount of groups going out every day. What's been your favorite piece of feedback that you've received?
Yeah, I mean,
or most memorable moment of outside your hole in one.
Yeah, I just the people that come back and they say what appear to be hyperbolic things of like, this is one of the greatest golf courses I've ever played. And I'm like, well, yes, I'm the architect. Nobody's going to come up to me and say, I hated this piece of shit. Like, I know that that's not going to happen, but the feedback has actually been fairly overwhelming, that people have been really, really positive about it, particularly the green complexes. And people are like, this is a world-class set of greens. They're 18 one-act plays. They toe that balance between interesting and never going over the top. And people have, I love that. I love when people are really specific about the golf course. Like when they come back and they say, the tee play, I played the white tees today and the tee placement off 14. I can't quite get over that. So maybe next time move it back or move it up. I like that level of specificity, and people are coming with that stuff. They're like, well, I liked it better here, or this pin placement I think worked better than that pin placement, or we should play the right green on 6 more than the left green on 6, or something like that. I love that stuff, and that's what it's all about. Is when people experience the thing that you built and they come back and they share their thoughts on it.
I agree. One of my favorite, I was out there one of the days early on. One of my favorite things was seeing it was your opening day. Yep. And seeing a husband and wife member. Yep. They teed off early on, and then my favorite thing is we got done playing, and I see them going out to play more golf. Like, that's a great sign.
Yeah.
Like, husband and wife play 18 wasn't enough. They're going to get more in. Like, yep. Perfect sign. Like, to me, like, it's as simple as that. Like, I got done with the golf course. I wanted to play more golf. Like, yeah. That's the best sign you can have. And I completely echo the greens. Like, I think like one of the things that I was most impressed by, like, I had heard a lot of things about the land. Heard it was a great piece of land from a lot of people that had seen it. Yeah. But what I really liked the most was the greens. None of them felt uninteresting, and none of them felt over the top. And I loved the idea, the simplicity of a lot of them, where there was generally like kind of a central feature that was varied, different, and in different locations that influenced the entire green.
Yeah. Yeah. We tried really hard on that. I mean, the land did so much work from tee to green. So we spent the vast majority of our time just focused on green concepts. And I mean, I think the greens are they're fascinating, but in often subtle ways, and that's what I really like. I love greens that rely on, slope and tilt more so than like big in your face undulations. And that's kind of what I wanted out of this. I mean, I love all types of different styles, but that was sort of like, that's kind of my go-to. That's what I love the most. I love when I play number 2 as much as I can because of that very reason, where I never miss a putt by like 6 feet because it hit one side of a buried elephant's ass and it went the other way. Like, I miss putts at number 2 by 2 inches right or 2 inches left, and I just don't understand. It's supposed to break toward Morganton Road. It's maddening, and I love it, and it's endlessly fascinating. And I think that I'm a big believer in what Keith Richards said about music. He said, the most interesting
thing. The music. We're gonna have to have you come back for a music golf extravaganza.
There's so many parallels. But he said the most interesting thing about a song is what notes you don't play. Your canvas is silence, and you don't have to fill it with everything. And I'm not like that. That's not my style, where, like, we've all been to those golf courses where it feels like they bang the drums as loud as they possibly could for 18 holes. And that's fun, but it's not really my style. And it's not the stuff that I want to play day in and day out. I love the subtleties that reveal themselves over time. It's not the stuff that smacks you in the face and reveals itself on the first go round. I love the stuff that just endlessly fascinates you.
I think like early on my journey looking at golf courses, I used to think, man, look at how bold that took stones to build that. Yeah. That's a crazy green.
Yeah.
Now I would say, like, what I look at is like this happens a lot at like Bill Coors golf courses. Mm-hmm. Where I'll see this just like beautiful, understated hole that like a lot of people might be like, I don't really know what's going on. But it's like, there's just this little bump in the green, and it's like a very fun hole to play. And this bump just wrecks, like it influences everything else on the hole. And there's one bunker on the left side, and it's modestly flat ground. And you're just like, you walk off the green and you're just like, man, what a nice, gentle golf hole. And I think like it takes so much confidence to build something that simple. Yeah. Like, and be confident that it's going to have enough interest that people aren't just like, that is a nothing burger.
Right. Yep.
Like that takes more confidence in my mind than building something wild.
I totally agree. And you know, I got to give a shout out to Joe Hancock, who was our lead shaper and really a key thinker in all this. And Joe's a seasoned old cat. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. And Joe was a really, you know, great voice to have on the project. And Joe was, you know, a voice of saying that's enough. Like there is intrigue in that, you know, the ball's going to do what you want it to do. You don't need to make it bigger. And Joe was just like, you know, Joe was the stately, the elder statesman of the project that just was like the steady hand through it all, and was oftentimes very reassuring of like, we've done enough here. Let's move on. This is going to work. And Joe was out there on opening day walking around with his wife. Yeah.
I loved this. This is exactly what I was going to say. I like, you know, there's this guy walking around with his wife.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've never met Joe Hancock. Like I've known of him. Yeah. And I'm just like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, oh, he was just out watching people play the golf course that he helped build. Like, that's like, that tells you everything you need to know about like what he's interested in. He probably thought about, how's this hole going to work? How, like, he saw I was in the bunker on the boundary hole 14 or 15, the boundary hole, drivable par 4, OB right. I hit it in the left bunker, and he's like, oh, that's going to be a really hard shot. Like, you know, like he was just like, he was so excited to see the shot that he'd probably thought about a million times.
Yeah,
you know, play out.
Joe, he's a true believer. I mean, he loves this stuff. And I mean, we went out to lunch a couple days after that. He was still kind of hanging around, and he still had thoughts about the golf course. Oh, you know, that cross hazard on 17. I think the Broomsedge is a little too high there. Go and trim that down. Like, he's still 100% invested in the golf course, loves it, and was just like, you know, really the glue, the on-site glue. That made, you know, a lot of what we did possible, and a lot of the ideas that we have out there. That's Joe Hancock. I mean, you know, the way that Joe and I worked was, it was like, all right, you know, here's 2 or 3 concepts. Here's kind of what I want to see out of this green, and they were, you know, go to town. And sometimes it was a walk off. You know, like 15 green was like, oh, we got that one next. And then other times we struggled a little bit more with it, like 8 green. You know, where I felt like, we need to do something else at it, but that's kind of how it works. So much of what's cool out there is, you know, Joe Hancock behind the steering wheel. So he was a massive asset to this.
All right, let's close this out with a couple music questions.
Oh, man.
What's your favorite music to shape to?
Man, it depends on what. It depends on what I'm shaping. If it's like an aggressive type feature, then it's like Hell's Bells, AC/DC. If it's a tamer thing, then it's like Springsteen, Tunnel of Love. You know, it's like so it depends on what I'm shaping. I sort of go into something and
the music matches what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I'm totally wrong.
It just like, it's amazing. You say Hell's Bells, and it just like rings through your head,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, and sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes it's like, ooh, I might have gone too far on that bunker. What the hell was I thinking? I shouldn't have put on Hell's Bells. I should have put on Tunnel of Love. But yeah, it's sort of what I'm about to shape dictates the song or the album.
Favorite song, golf course comp, like where like this golf course feels like this song, if you have one. I can give you one of mine. I'll just throw one out. I think I wrote this article once, and Garrett was like, it is way too niche for nobody's going to care about this. I wrote this out. I remember I was so excited about it, and he's like, you know what? I don't think we should publish this. So it's, of course, nobody's played. East Hampton, I've always said, is like Band on the Run, because they have farmland. Like there's a farmland section, there's like this in between section, and then you go into like a pine, like a a mature sand dune forest for 9 holes. And it's like the 3 stages of Band on the Run.
Yeah, that's a good comp. Or maybe
and like none of them really feel coalesced, but at the end you're like, you know what? That worked for me.
Yeah. A Day in the Life. I mean, with the Beatles, that's another kind of 3. Panmure is a good one for that. Like Panmure is another place where you have like Parkland, and then it goes to Heathland, and then it goes to Links Duneland. So yeah. Oh man, this is tough. I mean, I guess
another one I have is like Pasatiempo. You could do like Hotel California, because it just like the song, like it's really pleasant, and then it just like ends just wailing out. Like, like the last half of the song, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah. Maybe, I guess for Broom, maybe it's like Born to Run or something. I don't know. Or like Smells Like Teen Spirit, because it starts hot. It starts hot. Yeah, it starts hot. Or like, I mean, It Smells Like Teen Spirit was the first song on the on the album there, so it comes out swinging.
Like I never know if it should be you compare it like album or song. Right.
Yeah.
Like, because you could get like, if you got really into it, like you could do the album. It just like you're narrowing the audience of people that can relate to the
We've lost everybody already. Yeah. Or maybe like I mean, there's like Nebraska. I'm a big Springsteen guy, so like Nebraska, sounds like really
huge
austere. Oh yeah, I got a Springsteen shirt on right now. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm always sporting Springsteen stuff.
I'm gonna hold back my boss takes.
I know. I'm in the minority there. Cody,
I'm a boss is overrated guy.
Yeah, Cody is too. Cody gives me shit about the boss.
Cody's a big music guy.
He is, but he's not a Springsteen guy for sure. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Like some of the more like the low key places, I always think about like Nebraska, just really austere. And really basic. I mean, recorded on a shitty recorder, and I just think of like some of the kind of the Scottish places like a Panmure or something, where it's really austere and just really, really solid, but nothing in your face, nothing big. It's just in its rawest elements. So I'll have to think more about that.
Yeah, well, you got time. The good news is, I know we've gotten very narrow here, but anybody that's listening at an hour and 26, is in the bucket. So, Mike, thank you for joining us, chatting. I'm excited to see both your career and Broomsedge evolve, and congratulations on getting your dream built. It's an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on, and hopefully we do it again. This was fun.
Yeah. All right, that does it for another edition of the Friday Golf Podcast. Big thanks to PJ Clark for editing and producing this podcast while he was on the road in Phoenix for the Champions Tour event. If you want to learn more about that, check out Shotgun Start, the latest episode there. We will be back later this week with another episode. Probably going to do something a little different for that one. We have our company offsite this week, so we have everybody in our company in one spot. I might do a little question session with some of our team members. So big thanks, and we'll be back Thursday with another edition of the Friday Golf Podcast.